This is my project. This is my 2024 project. I need this to be done. Before summer of 2024, I need this to be done.
A piece of small, rugged earth, so untamed and fierce that it has a name softly whispered by at least one gardener. The Beast. Composed of jagged lava rocks, weeds, and sand so unhealthy that it's practically the beach outside of LA. Yet one determined gardener has set out on a quest to vanquish the beast, to uproot the weeds, to re-nurture the soil, and to sift out the lava rock. A daunting task indeed, one befit for a madman. And that's just what I am. It's honestly a travesty of use in garden space, and I have been determined to make it shine the way it was meant to. A relatively small bit of land, a 10-foot by 15-foot oval. When the house was built in the 80s and this bit of landscape was designed, there was a tree in the center, and the rest of the soil was topped with lava rock. Now, lava rock is a sore subject for me and this property, and you're about to understand why. Lava rock rose to popularity as a landscaping material in the 60s. Modern and minimalist design was taking off in architecture and had a spillover effect into landscaping as well. Xeriscaping also came about, which leaned hard into lava rock. There are benefits to lava rock, don't get me wrong. When used correctly, it can be an aesthetically pleasing material for pathways, or even if, again, done correctly, it is an excellent natural inorganic mulch. Lava rock is porous and therefore lets water through, while providing heat and moisture retention. It also prevents weed seeds from taking root. I believe this was the original intent for the landscapers when the house was built, using it as an inorganic mulch in the designed garden areas along the house, fence line, and here in the Beast. So if it's good at these things, how did the Beast come to be? If the lava rock is so good at suppressing weeds, why are the rocks full of weeds? The answer to that comes down to the previous homeowners. I don't know what the first homeowner did, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that the second owners didn't do a thing to preserve the lava rock in the garden. Instead, they opted for nature to take its course. The grass that was originally fended off by plastic dividers and lava rock began to grow over the rock, set root in the rock, and begin to build soil over that rock. This all began in the mid-90s, potentially sooner, and wasn't ever addressed until I took ownership of the house. So now, rather than suppressing weeds or adding water retention to the beds around the house, the lava rock is embedded 6 to 9 inches deep below the surface of the soil. The soil is completely compressed between and above the rocks, making any new plant unable to establish roots. The shallow-rooted and sprawling surface weeds, however, have the perfect amount of soil, 30 years of it to be exact, to grow on top of the lava rock peacefully without fear of competition. But the soil here does have potential. The majority of it is sand, blown in by the wind and deposited by the grass over the years, but there are also a jumble of decaying roots from the tree that once lived here. The soil around the roots is so black with nutrition that it practically looks like oil. I don't want to simply dig 9 inches deep around the garden and throw away the soil that I dug up. That would be 150 cubic feet to replace with new soil, and I ain't got that kind of money to drop on a landscaping whim. Plus, those roots have most likely established a microorganism culture that ideally I can leave in place to help colonize the soil when all is said and done. So how can the rocks get out but leave the soil in? And that's where this contraption comes into play. This is called a trommel, or a rock sifter, and it's by far the best way to sift rocks. You can find other methods around YouTube and the internet, and I've used those other methods as well. A wire basket from the dollar store, which works pretty well, and a custom screen made from chicken wire or hardware fencing attached to a wood panel. And this worked okay, but proved to be unwieldy and didn't make the work easier by any means. The trommel, however, was a game changer. I constructed it with materials that I mostly already had around the house. A couple of buckets, some chicken wire, PVC pipe, and some machine screws. I built it to sift compost originally, but it really excels at sifting these lava rocks. It completely eliminates the back and forth movement that the chicken wire wood panels normally use. And there is also no dumping of the rocks manually once the dirt has been all sifted out. Rotating the crank causes the trommel to spin. The dirt falls through the wire, and the rocks fall out the end of the trommel, completely stripped of their dirt. This increases speed of sifting and decreases manual workload. Other tools that I need to use are this Garden Weasel tiller. This thing's an absolute monster when it comes to uprooting grass, and uprooting the grass is the first step in conquering the beast. I begin by weed whacking it, and then the ripping begins. Once all ripped, time to shovel the ground into the trommel. This admittedly took a long time. The beast's location made it so that I could only work on it during certain hours of the day, and there's really only so much that can be done in that window. There were also other considerations. I have a dogwood planted here, stunted already, but I didn't want to hurt it any further and damage its roots. There's also a currant that, again, ideally, I don't kill, but time will tell on how much damage I did here. And since there is so much time during the whole process, I took up the strategy of planting as I went along. As I would finish large chunks and complete areas of the beast, I would plant seeds. And these are nothing special, just some seeds collected from plants that were bolting in my garden. First I did dill, and then a patch of carrots, and then I spread crimson clover all over. This wasn't to hope for a huge harvest, but you can see that I planted too densely for that. I'm just trying to get plants established in this bare soil, because nothing is worse for your garden than exposed and solarized soil. The rocks have been removed, the soil has been distributed, and the seeds have been planted. My last step in the process is edging the outside of the barrier of the beast. I'm ripping the grass away and then digging down a little bit so I can set these birch logs around for a more aesthetic barrier. Now, what to do with all this lava rock? Seems a waste to just throw it away, but I also certainly don't want to get this back in my garden to restart this whole cycle over again. If you made it this far, leave a comment for any ideas you have or how I can offload these rocks on someone else.